Hello, everyone. Congratulations to all the cast and production team for Love and Information and Dustin Wills. Welcome to post show. We're going to have a talk back. I'll allow each person to introduce themselves along with their role in this production. Let's begin with and toss off Michael.
Okay. My name is Michael. My pronouns are he, him. And I guess I would say I'm an actor. I was the actor in this show because this wasn't really like roles designated. But yeah.
My name is Tarique, and I too am also an actor. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dustin Wills, he, they, and I was the director. One of many, in a way, though.
And my name is Cole Lewis, and I'm the director of the acting program, pronouns she, her. I'm going to be moderating this talk, so I'll turn it over to you in the audience to see if you have any questions. You have the ability to ask them through the Q&A. And so far, we have no questions. We do. Okay, our first question. Could you explain what the messages were for the flag signing, sign language, and Pig Latin?
Yes, I believe the sign language was I cannot understand. Can you or I cannot understand. Can you repeat that? And then I'm not sure what the flag signaling was. And then the Pig Latin, I believe, they said can you speak Pig Latin? I think that's what they said, something to that effect.
Okay, and we'll welcome other questions, and you can put them through the chat if that's of interest. If not, in the meantime, we've got another one. Great. What was the most difficult aspect of using this online medium?
Oh my gosh. I can definitely start with that one. I think it was the challenge in it was to compare it to like, a theatrical piece where, you have your production team who, is doing their job, and you have their actors, you have your director and stuff like that. The most challenging thing was I would have to say, is not having the production team there. But they were there in a way, but not like physically there. So it was like, they were the ones speaking, and we were their hands, setting up the camera and setting up the audio, which was like a whole new experience for myself, I could say. But it was fun. It was fun, and it was an adventure. I'll definitely say that.
Yeah. I'll definitely jump on that and say like it was definitely the focus because the backdrop would be falling in between all the takes. You had to make sure we got the lighting, the audio would cut out, or you weren't connected to the right Wi-Fi, so you're lagging. So just really like pulling all these technical aspects and just like getting them in place, solidifying every single thing, and then like, okay, I can act now. So let me just like drop myself in and get this going now. Which I feel kind of forced a lot of us just to like push forward and be like just drilling what we're doing in that moment.
I mean, I would just say that like I've never done this. I don't think anyone here had ever done this before. So I think we were really just going in, just nobody knew what we were doing. We were all sort of like pantsless in a dream, being like, uh-oh. And that sort of like that fear of failure, is always present. But I mean, as actors, that's something, you got to learn to live with that, lean into that discomfort a little bit, which I have to say everyone did. Like everyone showed up every day, for something that, really you could have just turned away from it and just been like, I don't know how to do this, so I wash my hands of it. But I think everybody showed up like really ready to work, really ready to try everything out. And I think like something that Tarique was just saying too, about fixing your own this, fixing your own that. I think like there was an education in that, to try and spin a negative into a positive. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite actors to work with are actors who know about lighting, who know about sound, who like know what the pieces are that are going into the making. And I think something about this project, having all these actors have to sort of manipulate their own lighting and do their own sound, brings a greater appreciation to, I think, a lot of people who, work behind the scenes and sometimes, or sitting in the back during tech and you don't ever know their name. I mean, I feel like this is a group now who's going to go and meet all of those people, and be like, thank you for
Yeah.
making sure all this stuff works,
Yeah.
I have to say, what I thought was astounding about this production is there was that one quote in it. It's virtual and it's great. The couple in the bar, right? About this having, virtual sex versus real sex, or so-called real sex. And what I thought is that debate can go on in theater, right? Like, is digital theater any good or is it terrible? And the production for me, what was astounding was it lived right in the middle, in that fearless, bold, risk-taking place of the middle of not just saying it's great and just making it amazing and dissing what works for theater, but also not rejecting it completely, like you just spoke to, Dustin. I just adored that myself, that you just really took fearless, bold risks as a collaboration team. The next question we have is, what was the process for creating each scene? Oh, I think I'm receiving these out of order, but that's the question. What was the process for creating each scene?
Okay. Well, I remember when I first walked in, I was coming back from a concussion, so I've been out of the rehearsal for a while. So the very first thing that I had to do was the scene Memory House. And I'm like, oh, of course Dustin gave me this because I'm going through a concussion and I have to get my memory sorted or whatever. But then the process was more so of just like getting the specifics of each scene, and then separating like our fact and our opinion, and then figuring out which is which and what works to the scene, and so that we can just find like what do we really need right now for this story. And then after going through all that, we went into the chakras, finding where in our bodies everything sits, and what works for us for each and every single character. And then afterwards, it just became into the production of like the lighting, the backdrop and everything, and getting that sorted out. But by then we had everything sorted out with ourselves and for the scene.
Yeah, I would definitely say throughout this process, specifically for this piece, being that you have a cast with no names, and it's like there's no backstory, there's no like real before or after like moment. So it's like you're really looking at this piece for what it is and picking out, okay, what is it that we do know, and what is it that we think is factual but is not actually factual, and it was like that kind of work that we did with the piece really helped dissect it and make it what it is.
I mean, I really think that's like central to the title of the piece too, in a way. I mean, like that first week going through and being like, what is a fact and what do we intuit? And I feel like there's information that Caryl Churchill has laid out on the page, but when it hits our brains, I mean, I love that James McDonald quote that I think is on the website somewhere about like, once information hits the brain, something happens to it because we start to attach feelings to it. And so really, and I mean, I think the actors got to do the work of, I don't know, like how I approach a lot of work as a director. It's like, what are my assumptions and what is actually on the page, and really trying to sparse out those two things. And then so once we were able to sort of separate those two things, then we could sort of see what was there sort of naked on the page, and then be like, okay, now here are all of our opinions, what's hot for us, what's interesting, what feels close to us, what feels like a challenge. I want to do an accent, I want to like play old for this scene, or because I was really hoping that the students, because they're in their fourth year, that this also sort of could function as a showcase for them, where they can sort of be like, I can do this accent, I can do this accent, I can play old, I can play, I can explode my third chakra, I can explode my sixth, to really give like a real amuse-bouche of all the, or maybe like tapas style, here's all the things I can do.
The next question we have is, the lighting was astounding. Could one of you perhaps share how this was achieved? Maybe Dustin, unless one of the actors wants to speak to how they set it up in their space.
Well, I mean, everyone was sent, I believe, 2 LED changing lights, and then a strip, like an LED strip light. And so there were essentially 3 lights, and I'm more curious to hear from Michael or Tarique about having to set up your own lighting because you spent more time with the designers than I did, honestly.
Right there. That's the light. That's the light that we used to set up the show. We have another one, and then the LED strip lights that you can like hang on your wall. So we had production controlling all our lights. So I was just sitting here, and I had lights flashing over here, and like up here. And they were just trying to like set the right setting for the scene and what's happening. So like everything is specific to what Dustin wants. And it was kind of it took some time to get used to because I'm in my own home and I have people from like I don't know out in BC or something like that enjoying my life here in Toronto. Like, am I getting hacked right now? Like what's happening? But yeah, so like they just set up all the lights and were able to just find a way to make it work through technology.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there was a lot of creativity that went into our lighting design. We had to, work around obviously the limitations, but with that being said, like it kind of gave us a sense of, okay, let's try to work around this situation, like where can we put the lights, even if it's not usually on a pole, but it's like, on your bed frame or like on a chair, and stuff like that, and kind of just like working with what we have. And I think that was like, we were really able to accomplish that.
And I just got, shout out to Katie who was the lighting lead and was sort of behind the scenes. And she had, they had some folks on their team, doing that work too. And then to Damien too, who was the video editor, and also Nigel and Megan and all the people on the Simon on the video team, who afterwards also sort of like color corrects everything and make sure everything looks. But I remember spending like, what was it, 45 minutes on the shoot day. Michael, I think it was your scene with Aura where the tablecloth was like matte and shiny, and then we had to get the light just right because like in one way the light was making the tablecloth look all weird, so it looked like y'all were in two very different spaces, and we're like, no, it has to look like they're at the same table.
Yeah.
And I mean, commitment, and patience, a lot of patience.
There are two questions that I'm going to combine. Just being aware of time for the audience and how long we can keep you here in the amount of questions, which is awesome. So Seth Bodie, hi Seth, were the actors provided with equipment and props combined with, did the actors do their own makeup, the wigs, etc.?
Yes.
Yes. Everything that is currently, in my space or that was used for the show was provided by the school. So they're able to provide us with backdrops, lights, our microphones, tripods, all those things are provided so that we can like efficiently create this show and bring it to life.
Excellent. I'm going to also.
But I mean, like, I think it's worth mentioning, like, they would. So the way we filmed it is like, so we would have like 10 breakout rooms on Zoom, and the actors would go into a breakout room with their scene, and we did it one section a day, or maybe two sections some days. And they'd go into their room, and then all of the production team would go into the room, costumes, lighting, and they would like check this, check that. Set would be like, clip this way. Costumes would be like, your hair is off. And then they would like get everyone prepared, and then they would send them into a different program in StreamYard where we did the filming. I mean, it was just sort of like, I mean, there was a bit of a conveyor belt kind of vibe going, but like, I mean, shout out to all those people. Talk about checklists.
Yeah.
I mean, just going down, just pop, pop, pop.
A big shout out to production, because that post edit and everything you see there is because of them. And they did so much and created so much of what you saw today.
It looks so good. It looks so Oh my God.
That brings us to the next question in a really good way. How collaborative was this process? And then that's added with how much of it was Dustin coming in with ideas, how much discussed in the room? And I think that could also be combined with a later question, were there company discussions about what you thought Caryl Churchill's like a kind of scream or thesis statement was for Love and Information? Or how did you arrive at the conclusion or inform the direction?
I definitely feel like when it comes to the oh shoot. Oh yeah, sorry. Well, I definitely feel like when it comes to the sorry, I thought I was glitching out. When it comes to the script, we really like dissected it and broke it down as you saw, like into different sections. Um, and then with that, we were able to really understand, what was happening throughout the whole play.
I mean, I really wanted the actors to like have agency over a lot of their scenes. I mean, the ideas I came in with were more about how do I want to sort of frame this? That's a big question. So the way Caryl, I'll go way back. The way Caryl Churchill writes, when you read Caryl Churchill's various plays, like the form of the play is never the same, and the form is always somehow um, deeply influenced by the content of the play. And this is a play that she wrote, I believe, in 2012, and it's called Love and Information. And so trying to really um, look at this text, which is just information. It's just It's just lists of seemingly like just text with no character designations. So it's just so free, which is terrifying, honestly. Um, and so coming in, I was sort of trying to apply the same kind of principle that I feel like Caryl Churchill was applying to the play itself, where uh, I wanted to create kind of a framework of information that the students could sort of pour their love into, which would then sort of let them fill out their own characters, their own circumstances. I mean, I had a lot of opinions. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I hope that it felt like everybody, and we had designers coming in a lot too, and um, I'm hoping everybody felt that they were able to sort of craft ideas around what they wanted. And some things, I was nudging in a direction if somebody came up with a good idea, like really sort of pushing that. And then other times it was like, you got to get out here and do this. So what do you want to do? Uh, which is frightening because, you want to have like and speaking about like, what is the thesis statement? I don't know, I think it has a lot to do with love, and I feel like that's the kind of space I was trying to create where the students could put themselves into it. And I feel like that is in and of itself like, I don't know, I felt like that work sort of comes through the earnestness of, I think, some of the performances paired with the outrageousness of like section 6. You know? It's a bit of a you're like it's a bit of a whiplash, this play, because you can't ever find your footing, but there's something to that messiness that I personally enjoy that maybe some people don't, and that's fine.
I can definitely say for the scene with Mark, Eric, and Kyle, I remember the day when like we were kind of going over that scene, and the idea came up that there's this person who was just the squid, and it was just very like chaotic, and everyone was kind of just like, okay. We're like, all right. And I think it was like, at least for myself, it was because I was looking at it through like, through a theatrical medium. So like I was finding a really hard time like trying to picture this. And then until like when it actually happened in post-production, you're just like, okay, this scene makes so much sense. Like there's a reason why this person's a squid, and it's like it just works out.
I think that
Everybody's learning the they were pitching to me every day like, okay, this is my idea for the scene and it's a little outrageous, and I'm like, well, I mean, I'm the audience for that. I'm like, go for it, try and outrageous me.
very challenging to do. I mean, I saw you in that completely as well as the performers, because you're so outrageous. And like the squid scene was one I noted too when I was trying to figure out what I thought Dustin's scream was for the show, which I'll share with you later, Dustin. but a good old exercise in terms of that for my directing class students. You know what I'm doing. And the next question I want to shift to is because I think it leads really well from this talk about the squid and what Tarique is saying, about how none of you kind of understood what was going on, and what Dustin is saying about giving the actors a lot of agency, is what for you, Michael, or Tarique, what was given from Caryl Churchill, and then what did you create from that? What do you think you brought into conversation in some of like maybe one of your favorite choices? Yeah.
What was given? Honestly, I'm gonna just say how I feel. I guess the title. I feel like each and every single one of the sections of this play, the title was able to give us a kind of glimpse into where we may want to take it, like what our impulse was from the beginning. Like I remember for Secret, like the first time that I read it through with Daniel, I'm like, I know what this means to me, and I know what this means to Daniel. So let's take this where it means something to the both of us. So taking all of those, like the facts within that scene, the facts of the title, the facts of everything that's happening, and then applying, I guess, our own, I guess, history of facts, if that makes any sense, allowed us to create whatever we created within this piece, within this play. And I feel like the same thing would be said for a fair as well, when we're talking about like, how we've been structured that entire scene.
I just want to jump in real fast, Michael, because he's referring to a scene as secret or a scene as a fair. That is literally the only clue you really get in any of these scenes. Is each little scenelet has a one-word title, and that's like all you get in terms of context. Other than that, it's just lines of text with no character designation. So Michael, thinking what you're saying, like we have the title, love and information, and then we have the scene title, and that's pretty much what you got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely say it's a pretty like, like the script is a very like blank canvas in a sense where like you have the ability to make it, whatever you want. You have obviously the obvious like the title and like the little facts in between the lines, but at the end of the day, it's like you don't know which line is for which person. Like this could be one person, talking with, I don't know, a thought in their head, or like it could be 3 people, it could be 4 people. So definitely like being able to create whatever you really want it to be, obviously with Dustin's approval, but like I think that was I think that was the best part of it.
But I mean, Tarique, that reminds me, like in the scene, I don't remember the title of that scene, but when Marissa's in the shower,
Yes.
most of the scenes, often the scenes are pretty much line is one character, the next line's the next character, back and forth, back and forth. But that was a scene where I think like in the final week, we sort of like halfway through the scene, we were like, this makes more sense if you read these 2 lines in a row and then all of the second half of the scene flips.
Yeah. It was so, I think that was the one thing I took from it, was like how much like the whole scene and like the context of it changes just from like one person saying another person's line, and it just like, especially like my initial take of my character being in that scene, I was like, okay, this is what they're going through, this is what they want to talk about, da 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 da, this is their objective. And then when we were like, you know what, I think it might work this way, and we just tried it on for size, I think, and we read it through, and I was like, what, like it was like everything just shifted, but definitely in a good way, because then it was like, okay, this actually makes more sense, because the way how I was saying this line, like it just felt weird. Yeah, that was a really cool experience.
The next question is, how was your budget? I think this is directed to you, Dustin. Different from this show compared to shows you have worked on prior to the virtual world, and perhaps maybe a way to frame that further, Dustin, is to maybe speak to the various contexts. I know you've worked in many different kind of contexts with budgets in relation to this.
I have no clue what the budget was. I never saw a budget. I mean, I am by nature scrappy, so I was ready to be like, "What do you got? What's that in the corner? Grab that. Can we use that?" But um, so I don't know. I don't know if I can really answer that question. I feel like the emotional budget was very large. I think it was larger than pretty much any show I've ever worked on. I think like uh, having to, you know, for all of these actors to turn their living quarters spaces into essentially like a filming studio, and some of these folks have roommates who are not in the acting program and are probably just like, what is going on, So shout out to them, shout out to the roommates, and to the parents and folks that are just existing in houses where suddenly you walk in one day and there's a giant green screen and someone's screaming.
My roommate.
Oh my gosh. So, but I mean, I would say at the same time though that we were working with very essential items. I think we had a green screen, a black screen, and a white screen, a little film drop, three different lights, a microphone, and then a program that hooked up your computer to your phone so you could use the camera. I mean, these folks were like acting like they're acting at the computer screen, but they're being filmed here. I mean, these were actors who were acting with an X on the wall, and then suddenly you look at the filming and it looks like they're speaking to each other. And I mean, just like, but yeah, I would say it's scrappy. I mean, multiply that by 20, and suddenly, I'm sure that costs something. But I also feel like this is what this year is. So I mean, it's also going to get used quite a bit, I imagine. And what actor doesn't need a green screen, or a, half the job is putting yourself on tape.
You answered the next question in there quite well, which was about how the actors were working, whether you were with their actors or to a computer screen or the X. So it seems like a variety of choices there and being filmed in a different way. So the next question is, what does chicken tikka masala mean?
Oh man. Wow. Okay. So originally, in the script that we have for Love and Information, there's this kind of segment where it was called like depression, basically. And we had like a whole bunch of different lines that were under that scene, I guess, that we all kind of got. And I think every scene that you saw with like a white screen person in a white shirt, like that was like a depression scene, I guess you could call it. For chicken tikka masala, I mean, I think like my initial take on it was, if this is a depression scene, this is somebody who's really trying to, like find joy in something, whether like, and then this something is food. So like just chicken tikka masala is just bringing them out of that mood. That's just making them happy.
Yeah, those are tough. I mean, it's like you get this whole script, and then at the end of the script, there's a page that says depression. And Caryl Churchill writes, one of the very few stage directions is, depression is very important to this play. These depression lines can be done are one actor talking to another actor. They can be played by the same person. They can be played by numerous people, and they can also go anywhere you want in the play. So I mean, it's just like, what, and it's just a series of lines of one person trying to pull someone out of a depression. But I think there is something, I wonder, I am still dubious about how effective that is in a virtual setting, because the idea was like it's the only takes where the actors are looking really straight to camera, trying to engage the audience directly, trying to pull us out of a depression. Did it work? I don't know. Maybe for somebody, but none of us know what we're doing here, so that's great. But I mean, I should also add to that though. So there's these depression scenes, and then there are these other scenes called optional. And there's just a list of, it's like bird song, Zen, dog, flag, semaphore. And also these are scenes that you can just put wherever you want. So we used those. So each of the actors was given one of those optional scenes and told to go out into the world and film 5 to 15 seconds of footage of their personal response to that word. And that's what we used for all the interstitial footage between all the sections.
I mean, I love the approach to this. Seems like sitting in the messiness and the uncertainty and the terrifying kind of moment of the world right now where we're trying to figure out the transition. I'm going to skip ahead a little to a question wary of time as well that I think relates to that, because we're over the half hour I promised our audience right now, but we can squeak a little bit to 45 minutes if that's okay with you all. But how does directing something originally written for the stage in the format of film contribute to or undermine what the playwright maybe originally intended? And how were you challenged and what were the challenges?
Tarique? Just kidding. Well, I mean, you know, when approached with this, with the what project to do in a virtual world, which could, I don't know. I'm suddenly like angry at like, and I'm in Texas right now. I'm in America at like the administration where I don't think we needed to ever be in this severe of a moment. I think a lack of leadership has really sailed us into this, you know, treacherous territory. Um, where again, I've never done this before. None of us know what we're doing. And these are moments where, you know, you grab a life raft, and then, you know, you get as many people on that life raft with you. So thinking about like, it never once crossed my mind that I would undermine this because I just felt like we have to do this. You know, we're theater makers, we're artists. This is what we have to do. And if this is the way we do it, then this is how we do it. Um, but I thought this play in particular would be good for such a large group of students. I think it gave all of the students an even distribution of roles, so nobody was like, you know, overwhelmingly featured or under featured. I thought that because it was mostly two-hander scenes, that there could be a more intense focus on those collaborations between the two students. Where if I wasn't in the room working with the two actors, then they could be off working together on their own, creating their own circumstances or just running the scene. Um, I thought I thought it would give a production team and a design team a real range to show. I mean, you got 100 characters, so go to town costumes. Um, and in terms of like, and again, this is back to like Caryl Churchill, the form that the play takes is based on, or I see is born out of the topic or the content of what she's interested in. And I feel too that this play felt right now because isn't that what we're in the middle of right now, mired in, is love and information. We're sitting on these computer screens. We're dealing with our, you know, our devices, our the news. We're reading the news every day. I mean, I feel like we're flooded with information right now. COVID numbers, this, that, misinformation. You know, I feel like there's something about all these actors being given, you know, essentially information which, you know, you look at the page as facts, but these facts can be construed in so many different ways. And I think that is something that, I don't know, I feel personally in America, I'm like, oh, you look at it that way, I don't see it that way, but that's what you did. Here's what I do. I don't know, so there was something about this play in this format that actually for me felt more interesting than when I think about this play on the stage. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, maybe that's gauche, but I don't know, this was, you know, and I had thought of a bunch of other plays and this one just like popped. I mean, Cole, we were on the phone, I feel like
Yeah.
4 days before going into rehearsal, and I had been thinking of this whole other project, and then I was like, wait a minute, this play, and then reread it, and I was just like, my mind kept exploding over it. And I just felt like there were so many intersections with what was going on, and it felt international too. It didn't feel sort of, you know, I feel like my brain is very stuck in American politics right now, but there was something about this that felt more expansive, more worldview as well.
Dustin, there's a couple of questions about casting, and could you speak to, perhaps I'll do two more, this question and one more question to follow up. So I apologize to those who've asked fantastic questions. Please feel free to email myself, and I can pass you on to the right person to answer if your question wasn't answered. My email address can be found on Ryerson School of Performance website. And or if you don't know me already, reach out. I'm happy to answer outside of this what I can. But the last one, so if you could speak to casting, and then I have one question to end off on for all three of you.
Yeah. Oh, this is Tilda. Say hi. Um,
Oh,
so all the actors were sent the script, and I told all the actors to send me a 1 minute long video, explaining to me which scene or piece of the script felt most important to them. Um, and so each of the actors just sent me a 1 minute clip of like, I think Ethan sent me Star, and he was like, I read Star, and I gravitated toward that scene. And thankfully, no one doubled up. So right away in casting, I just plugged whatever scene you sent me, that's where I plugged you in. So that part of casting was done, and so then it was just a matter of um, I don't know. I would just read the scene and based off of that 1 minute video I saw, and I was just trying to like glean all I could out of like what might be important to this person. Um, and some were just absolutely arbitrary. I had a big grid and I was like, oh, this person needs to be in a scene in this part or they're not going to be seen. So everybody was very evenly distributed. And so a lot of it was honestly throwing paint at a wall, and then they got in the room and started making sense of it based off of their identity markers, based off of their personal relationships to each other and, to the content of the scene. Um, yeah, so I guess most of it was just kind of a willy nilly, you know?
For our last question, which I leave to each of you to answer, and I'll try to frame a couple other questions inside this. There's so many new things that you were faced with in creating this production. The pandemic creating a sense of isolation, people being like absolutely, in some cases, unable to be in the same room or space with each other, moving to an online platform in which our breath, our bodies cannot be in the same space. Even as the audience, we cannot share that physical space with you. Whereas actors, you're not looking at the gaze, your eye line couldn't be with one another in moments. Dustin not even being in the same country as the performers. I'm wondering what from this experience you will take forward back to when you can be in the stage and the same space together in the future. Post-COVID world where we can be in theater again, what can you take from this that will help in the future when we're back making theater?
I mean, I don't know if this is like some deep philosophical like way of looking at it, but honestly, it's just that there's nothing you can't really do. Like, yes, most definitely, lots of respect to the production team. That literally, like, nothing is impossible. You know what I mean? Even though we're in the circumstances where it's like you can't be with your director in person, you can't be with your set designer in person, you have to set up the lights. It's having that integrity to want to do a show, and just working around your situation and still keeping the integrity and the meaning of the show, as if it was, as if you can tell it in theater, and having it still hold that same meaning as if it was on Zoom. I definitely feel like that's something to take from this.
Yeah, I feel a huge thing that I'm going to take away from this is just like honestly forgiveness and honesty, like forgiving myself not really knowing how to show up in this space and navigate this new medium, and then honesty and just showing up and just being like, Dustin, like let's just figure this out and move and see where we go. And I feel like honestly that allowed me to create a lot more freely and be here a lot more freely, and just show up. So I feel like when we do move back to being in a space that we're used to, I want to show up the same way with the same energy, so I can continue to create the same way that we did for this show.
Oh, um, If you're ever, I don't know, if you're like stranded somewhere on a desert island or something, it's like I'm just like theater people are who I want to be with because you can just kind of figure it out. Um, and I don't know, like I'm not sure like what I would take with me. Um, I mean, there's something about virtual theater and accessibility that I think is a uh, you know game changer for the whole industry. Uh, I think people who have not been able to access theater or physically in real time and space, like I think this is. I mean, I'm hoping theater will get better at like learning how to film itself and to create something that still feels three dimensional. Um, which is something we wanted to do with, which is another reason I chose the show because it felt prismatic, in a way where it's constantly changing and can feel three dimensional. Thinking about like the Baroque, I call them the Baroque waves of the climate scene. Um, uh, so I don't know like what I take forward, but it makes me just appreciate liveness so much. I think it's easy to grow cynical or to get sort of hyper focused on like what's the next job or what's this, but just the this is what I'll take forward with me: the amount of presence required to do a project like this, like true presence, was like something I've never had to do before. There was no, I don't know, I couldn't be off for a day because I just feel like, I mean, I did cancel rehearsal early a few times when I was just like, yo, I'm done. I can't. My brain, this is not useful.
Zoom fatigue.
Appreciated that. We appreciated
I don't know.
that.
Presence, whether it be virtual presence in my everyday interactions with artists, presence in my own work, presence in what I'm reading. Yeah.
I'll
I
definitely,
don't know. I feel like I kind of like dodged that question, but what are you gonna do?
if I could add on to that, also patience.
hmm
I feel like it was a thing where we were so used to having our theater, having our lights, having our costume room, having our green room, where it was like we were able to work in that element efficiently. Um, and then we were given this whole new environment, where we're still kind of doing the same thing, but now there's we have to work around being in this new space. And that's what it was like for, I think, for everyone. So it was definitely a thing of understanding that this is new for a lot of people, um, and that there's no expectations that you could really have. It's just you have to take it with fresh eyes and move forward and just accept and acknowledge and forgive.
I think that's
Agree.
yeah, it's a beautiful piece of loving information to end on. Thank you so much, Tarique and Michael and Dustin. Thank you to the whole cast of Love and Information,
Yeah.
whole production team. Of course, you're such value and so clear in the work. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for this talk back. Have a beautiful night, and thank you to the audience who's witnessing. Tell other people to watch it.
Yes, watch it.
Yes, please.